life. As long as you can think it, you can create it. It goes beyond the limitation of live action. Also, it has great persuading power. Now, I believe most of us here know one popular song titled, is it Ijoya? Right? Now, the question is, what made that song popular? Was it the audio or the video? It was the video. Have you ever had to buy a product because you saw the commercial? A lot of people here don't or may not like animated content. But if you were to see an animated commercial, it grabs your attention quicker than live action, isn't it? Also, animation has less limitations, meaning you don't need to have things like big cameras, drones, lighting setups, and things like that. Everything can be done within your computer. And the good thing about it is you can actually work with very expensive actors because you don't need to pay them the same amount you'd pay them to act. All you need is their voice. So it makes your production cheaper. Also, assets can be used multiple times. By assets, let me give an example. You see, there's this problem in filmmaking, especially if you're working on laugh anyway, it's a dry joke. Anyway, now, most of us, you find out we can work in different countries. We don't need to be there in person. We can make our files and send. So that's what makes it a lot convenient to work in animation. Okay. Now, let's go back to stop motion. I'll try and touch all those types of animations gradually. Now, this is from stop motion animation. The first show is what do you call it? Shaun the Sheep. The second one is also Shaun the Sheep. You can see these are puppets. Now, in order to create this animation, these puppets have to be made and manipulated gradually. So imagine if we wanted to have a stop motion animation of everyone in this hall. We would need to build puppets of everybody here. Then one by one, we would go and manipulate all the characters one by one, go back to the camera, take one snapshot, go back again, move everybody, go back, take one snapshot. We'll keep doing that until we finish our film. It takes years to achieve. There was this German animator I heard of. He started a movie when his kids were infants. By the time he was done with his film, some of them were already married. That shows you how much time it takes, because everything has to be made gradually. Now, if you look at the other image here, the other images at the bottom, these are actually sets. It means to work in stop motion animation, you need to be able to be good at set design, because you have to create miniature sets. You can see these are this is the same set. You can see what the set looks like in relation to a human being. Now, these puppets now will be inserted into these scenes and the acting takes place. All right. Now, we have a little example of what these puppets look like, or how they are made. Now, to make a puppet, you need to make the skeleton of the puppet. You can tell that the one on the extreme right is the skeleton of a gorilla, then comparison to a human being. This image at the bottom is from the movie Kubo and the Two Strings. All these puppets were made with these skeletons, which we call armatures. It gives the puppets support, so you can be able to manipulate them. I'm sure some of us played with toys growing up, right? So you can be able to give them any kind of pose. Now, they are made to be very articulated, to give them, should I say, a large range of motion. All right. Now, let's look at digital character creation. What's happening here? Okay. Now, this is a two-dimensional character, as you can see. It's done. This was done using a program called Toon Boom. Now, the audience see the complete character here. But we, the animators, what we do is, to be able to make this character dynamic, we have to break down every piece of the character into different layers. So on the right-hand side, you can see all the components that make up the character. Each one has to be done on its own. This gives a range of movement. It helps the character to be able to move. Now let's go deeper into character creation. Now, this is the character I made on the right. The audience sees the complete character. We, the animators, see this circuit diagram here, which we call node view. Every node here, all these tiny boxes you can see, are what form this character. If one is missing, the character is going to fall apart. So it's almost like cooking, mixing ingredients, and then you get the final work. Now, why am I showing you all this? You see, a lot of people think animation is all about pressing buttons. Let me tell you a story. Some years ago, someone contacted me. He said he wanted an animation to be done, basically a music video. He said he wanted it to be 5 minutes long, and this call was on a Friday. He wanted it to be 5 minutes long. I said it's doable. Then he said, can it be ready by Sunday? What he didn't know is it could take as much as 1 week to make just one character. Most of these projects are done in years. That is why you find that Hollywood likes to recycle animated content. For example, if you had to look at this movie, who has seen this Rapunzel movie? Is it Twisted? Who has seen it? And who has seen Frozen? Now, what you might not notice is some of the assets used in one movie were also used in Frozen because it was cheaper for them to reuse those assets than to make them from scratch. That is why we try to make sure all these characters we create, these assets, we can reuse them. Okay, we're going to talk about lip synchronization. This is where someone like Mr. Ray comes in. Now, we as animators, we also work with sound. I'm sure you notice in animated films, you see the characters talking, right? How is that done? It's done by means of something we call lip synchronization. In short, we call it lip sync. Now, the English, shall I say, alphabets are broken down into what we call phonemes. That is mouth shapes. Now, there are different styles. Now, you notice something. If you are to pronounce a word that begins with letter M, it doesn't matter what language, you always do this with your lips. Isn't it? If you are to pronounce a word beginning with letter B, the same mouth shape. The same with P. If you are pronouncing a word beginning with V, you go by biting your lower lip. It's the same mouth shape for V. It means that we break down all these letters, 26 of them, into phonemes. I think there are about 7 of them, depending on the software. Then what we do is we scrub through our audio and make sure the mouth shape matches the sound. Frame by frame, we scrub through the sound. So imagine if you are doing lip synchronization for a 1-hour movie. You'd have to scrub through 1 hour worth of audio frame by frame in order to make sure the mouth shapes match the sound. That is how you have a convincing lip synchronization. Sometimes some softwares have some plugins or facilities that help you to be able to do it automatically, but it's not always perfect. Animators prefer to do it manually. So this is a very tedious work. So this gentleman that wanted me to have his job done in 3 days, he didn't consider me having to scrub through 5 minutes of sound, of voiceover, to be able to get the lip synchronization right. That is why we animators, we have very few friends. That's the truth, because we're mostly in front of our computers. It takes most of our time. All right, so now this is the breakdown of a typical 2D scene. On the left, you can see a scene from the movie, from the series Futurama. On the right, this is what we see in the software. Every feature of this scene is broken down into layers and placed at various distances. This gives an effect we call parallax. Parallax is, have you noticed when you are driving in your car, do you notice that things that are very far away tend or appear not to move at all, right? Things that are closer to you tend to move quicker. That is what we call parallax. So in order for us to create those kind of effects in animation, we have to create different layers of our background that give that effect. And assembled, it looks like what we have on the left. Now let's go into 3D computer animation. We all love to watch movies like Moana, Frozen, Coco, and all of them. But we don't, or most people don't know what it entails. Now, we have two shapes here. We have a cube and we have a sphere. What you notice are tiny dots. Do you notice them? On the cube, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 8 of them. And on the sphere, we have so many. Now, when you're working in 3D, you're basically plotting a three-dimensional graph. We did graphs in our secondary school, right? X against Y. But in 3D, we are plotting X against Y against Z. That gives form to all these our shapes. You need to take into consideration the position of every single point here, because these are the shapes we use to create characters, props, and even environments. Now, let's look at more complicated or complex forms. Now, we have 4 images here. The one at the top left, you notice that there are fewer points, aren't they? So it's a less complicated character compared to the one on the right. And then look at the one at the bottom and the one at the extreme right at the bottom. So the more complicated your characters are, or whatever you are making, the more points. And the more points, the heavier the file. The heavier the file, the more the system requirements. That is why we don't use any kind of computer for 3D animation, because it is very tasking. Okay, let's talk about texturing. After we make a character, we need to make the character look as believable as possible. The only way this is possible is by means of texturing. Now, have you noticed something? When tailors are making their clothes, they cut everything into pieces and they assemble it, right? So when we have a character like the one at the top, we actually need to cut the character just the way a tailor cuts clothes, or just the way you would take a packet of maybe Lipton and you open it and spread it out. Now, at the bottom here, we have the entire, we call it texture map of the character. Now, all these things at the bottom now are like the surface area of this character, which are then painted. We actually paint it. It means if she is wearing a pair of jeans, we're going to paint the part of the jeans that was exposed there. We paint it with jeans material. And when we are done, we have the character looking like we have on the right. So let's compare. On the left is an untextured character. The one on the right is textured. You can see which looks more interesting to look at. Obviously, the one on the right. So the one on the right is the one that we actually took our time to paint to make it believable. That is why texturing is very, very important when it comes to animation. All right? Okay, let's look at rigging. Please, rigging is not the election type. We're talking a different kind of rigging. Rigging here in animation is the process of creating bones for your character. The only reason why we are able to move is because we have bones in our bodies. Now, this character on the extreme right is a completed character. We cannot see the bones. Or on TV, we don't see the bones. But with animators, what we see is what is on the left. Now, the first picture here is just for the hand. Just to be able to have the character move the fingers, you have to create a complex system of bones that can be able to allow you to make any kind of hand movement. The one in the center is the complete body. Of course, everything here, I just decided to put everything on the screen so we can see. Most times we hide some of these things to make it less complicated for us that are working on it. Now let's look at stages of creating a face. Now, the first thing we'd do if we're making a face of a character is we would model the face here like we're plotting graphs. You can see all the points, right? So this is the face. The one in the center is the bone setup for the face. That is why you can have the characters being able to do any kind of face gesture. Open their mouth, doing all that. All these are bones that help you control parts of the character's face. So you can create any kind of expression you are looking for. So the man that called me that time, what he was looking at was the extreme right. He didn't take into consideration what we go through to create what is on the right. I know it's boring, bear with me. So these are other processes in animation. We have things like cloth simulation. We have smoke and fire. We have hair particles. It means to be an animator, you need to be able to be, you need to be a tailor as well because you are working with cloth or clothes. You pick whether you want it to be silk, denim, leather, whatever it is, play with the settings, sew the clothes on the software, put it on the character, and simulate it. Same with hair. Most of us are also hairstylists as well. Although we look at pictures and we try to style the character's hairs to make it as believable as possible. Right? Now, next is animation itself. That is giving life. I forgot to mention, the simplest definition of animation is giving life to inanimate objects. So it means that all these characters are made. You need to be able to make the characters act whatever action they are supposed to perform. You know, you found that if you went to shoot maybe a 1-minute clip or even a 10-second clip, all you would do is tell the live actor to come and act it out, and you record and you say cut, and that's all. For animation, you are going to keep on posing the character in order to create those actions. Now, why we like it is, in quote, it's almost like playing God. You're controlling the character. This is a character, you can pose it in any form you want. Now, you need to make it as believable as possible. Sometimes what we do, in order to get this right, is we use reference videos. It means we get somebody to act out the action, we record the person, and we try to copy out the movement on the computer, frame by frame. Okay, this person is posed this way. Okay, I'll pose the character this way. Okay, he goes this way, I do this. Just to make it match, to get the timing right. I once took a whole day just to work on a 10-second animation, just to get the acting right. Because it's more about trial and error. You might try this action out, you find it is too quick, or it's too slow. You go back, work on the timing, and so on and so forth. So at least you know why we have very few friends. Okay, next we're going to talk about rendering. Now, some of you may have heard the term rendering. Now, on the computer, when most of us are working, while we have like the images on the left, you always give a lot of information to your designs, like color, lighting information, reflection, texturing, wind, smoke, all those things. But on the computer, we don't see it. Now, when you are rendering your work as an animator, you are basically exporting the scene. The software analyzes all the information you have given in your scene and creates a final look just as we have on the right. You can see the one on the right looks more believable than the one on the left. Now, in comparison, to render this scene on the right, it was rendered in 4K resolution on an Asus ROG computer with 32 gigabytes of RAM and an 8 gig NVIDIA GTX 1070 dedicated graphics card. Yet, it took 2 minutes, 56 seconds to render just this frame. So, if this was to be rendered as a 1-minute work, it would take 70 minutes. Sorry, it would have taken 70 minutes to render 1 second of this animation. And also 70 hours to render 1 minute of this. 70 hours. So it means that gentleman that met me He wanted me to make 5 minutes. If I was going by this, it would have taken 70 times 5 hours to render that his film. It means it would have taken weeks to even render his work, but he wanted it done in 2 days. But of course, in industry, there are ways of speeding these things up. Like in the West, mostly they use what we call render farms, where they have hundreds of supercomputers connected together working on a single task. So what could have taken me 70 hours to render, maybe if I was working on a render farm, I could get it in probably a few hours, maybe an hour, or probably a few minutes as well. Okay, now let's go into photorealism in animation. Now, a lot of people say, I don't watch animated films, they're for children. But yet, most of what we watch have animated content. Like on the left, some people might think this is real, but this is actually photorealistic animation. It's used in the movie industry. Because sometimes, when you want to have complex stunts, you can't have your stuntman doing those actions because it is life-threatening. So most times they use computer-generated characters to be able to create these kind of realistic animations. So you watching it might think it's a real character, whereas it's actually an animated character. On the right, we have an extract from the Lion King movie. Some people may think it's a real movie, but it's actually animated. You see, it's made to look very photorealistic. So sometimes it's done so well that you can't even tell the difference between what's animated and what is not. Now, in order to make this very believable, we have to go into what we call performance capture. Now, for performance capture, what happens is we get real actors to put on some suits, and their movements are being recorded and transmitted to the computer-generated character in order to make them more realistic in their movement. As you can see. Now, the person on the right, you can tell that he's trying to act as Godzilla. That's why a prosthetic tail was fixed on him with some lighting points. So when he moves, the tail attached to him moves as well in a realistic fashion. And that movement is recorded and transmitted to the computer-generated creature, which makes it move believably. The one on the left is from the movie Avatar. In order to get the facial movements done well, all these points on his face had to be recorded in real time and transmitted to the computer-generated character, making the facial movements more believable. So this is performance capture in animation. Okay, summary of activities. Now, this is a 3D production pipeline. We have different stages. We have the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. Just like a normal movie, we have the idea stage, story, storyboard, animatic, design, layout, research and development, modeling, texturing, rigging, animation, visual effects, lighting, rendering, and all that. So basically, everything that we do in a live action shoot, we do it in animation, except that we do it within our computer. So this is what we go through just to make an animated film. Now, in animation, we have generalists and we have specialists. Most of us begin as generalists. It means we can handle every aspect of the production pipeline. But as we go further, we try to specialize because it's very difficult to be good at everything. Because if you thought you didn't have a life as an animator, wait till you become a generalist. You find that your phone ringing will be irritating to you because it's stealing your time. So some of us try to specialize in one aspect. It kind of helps us to produce more content under a shorter period of time. All right. So we have applications of animation outside the media and entertainment. Most people think animation is all about films and music videos and commercials, but there are deeper applications. We apply animation even in the field of medicine. That's why medical doctors too go into animation. So they can be able to make medical animation to help to be able to pass medical information across to people. You can see this is just what the heart looks like in its animated form. If you had to watch the whole video, you would see how the heart works. And like I said, it's easier to learn from videos and pictures than from text. So this is medical animation. We also have architectural animation. When you have animated buildings, we use it to like show our clients what buildings would look like before they are created. So it cuts a lot of time. From this phase, we have an idea whether the building is going to look nice or not. Then we have mechanical animation. Mostly this is done for simulations, also instruction too, showing how certain complex things work. Like all of us know the way, we know that once you drive a car, the engine is running, but we don't know how it runs because the engine is sealed off and we can't open it. But using mechanical animation, we can be able to show people how it works in a safe, controlled environment. We have animation or forensic animation. This is mostly in terms of investigation. When people are trying to recreate events, crimes, accidents, and things like that, to show people that were not there what actually happened. So I hope Nigeria gets to use forensic animation in the future. It can cut a lot of time. Yeah. Then we have education in animation. Most of us grew up watching shows like Sesame Street and things like that that helped us to learn certain complex matters. I'm sure a lot of us still remember A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the mnemonics for that song. It helps us to remember. So the same way, if animation is used in education, it helps students learn better than if they were given documents to read. All right. So before considering animation, before choosing a software for animation, there are a lot of things we consider. Things like requirements, like what do our clients need, how knowledgeable we are. This is a lot of text, so I won't go into this because it's going to take most of our time, so I'll just skip this. But the slides are there if you're interested. All right. So in conclusion, animation is a very interesting field, and there's so much we can do in animation. Unfortunately for us, most people don't know what it entails. They think it's magic. They think it's just press this button and it's done. So we as animators, what we're hoping to do is work more on letting people know all the various things that go into making an animated film, so they don't look down on it. Because the truth is, a lot of people think animation is a cheaper alternative to live action. The truth is, it's easier to act it out than animate it. That's just it. So thank you for listening.
I believe that our minds have been opened to otherwise unknown possibilities as far as animation is concerned. We want to entertain just 2 questions or contributions or opinions, as it were. Are there any? Yes, please come. One more person. Okay, please come. I realize that since we started, I've not seen any woman ask question. Please free up. Is there any? Thank you very much. Please come. Yes, Mr. Please introduce yourself and ask your question, please. My friend, will you do what you do? Ladies first.
All right. So pardon me, I wanted ladies first. Okay, this is it. So twice you mentioned that. All right. I think twice you mentioned that animation may be cheaper, and that kind of. Well, okay. I'll quote you verbatim. So maybe you remember what you said. You said that because if it's animation, you can use very expensive actors, very big actors, but because it's animator, you just need their voice. That says to me money still, because I'm a producer, so and then now just at the end now, you also talked about the fact that animation may take longer time and all of those things. Live action may even be more expensive. So I really want you to, break that down and maybe do some sort of backtrack and let us know that animation is actually not cheap. Because I've been trying to do some animation for a lot of time and I've not seen the money. And this sounds like so cheap.
This will take us the next 2 years to break down, but I'm sure Mr. Shima will respond appropriately. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much. I am William Zolufumi. I am from Ondo State, the Director, Electronic and E-Media, Ondo State Ministry of Information. I've been in the media for over 35 years, and I know very well that animation is not an easy thing. We are for people of my age and caliber right now, we are into training and development, and to also facilitate this kind of training. I want to ask, are we also researching into ways by which animation could be a lot easier and faster, particularly in this digital age, where the information superhighway, it's at a rapid level? Are we doing any research, more research, and looking at ways by which it could be easier for the younger ones to key into animation? Because it is indeed a very, very key aspect in our future.
Thank you very much, sir. Hello, ma. Please shift to this side so that I can see you. Introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, my name is Shidera. I just want to ask a very simple question, right? With the whole thing you explained, I just want to know where the script comes in, because it sounded as if you just dump the script and then you have to create the whole work in your head, So I just want to know, aside the whole storyline you have to work with, where does the script really comes in animation?
Please, can I have the slides back? Excuse me. Can I have the slides? Can I have the slides? Okay, while they're getting it set. Okay, let me start with the second question. Yes, a lot of, Yeah, a lot of research goes into animation, mostly in terms of equipment. Because you find that every day, a new kind of computer benchmark comes out. Okay, most often, you find that today you might hear something they call minimum requirements on this, using a software. They'll tell you, before you use this software, we recommend you have this kind of system, this kind of processor, this kind of storage, and things like that. Now, why they come up with these benchmarks is to help you to be able to achieve, make the best out of the software. And in terms of making it easier, you find that most animators are actually inventors. We try to invent techniques that make these processes simpler. That's why, we that, especially we that in the teaching sector, we know what we pass through learning certain things. So what we do is we try to make this information more readily available. We try to work on documentation. There's some softwares that are very good, but there's very little documentation. That's why till today I still get emails from different people over the world asking me to create courses for them to be able to master these softwares. And sadly, most of us learned animation quite late in life. So we're looking at the platform whereby animation can be taught right from even secondary school. So these students can even be on their own. They can learn all these skills before even entering university. My background was in mechanical engineering. Now, what have happened if I specialized in animation right from the beginning? I'm sure I've achieved a lot more. I hope I answered your question. And then for the second one, someone asked about the script writing, the script process, right? Now, if you notice this chart I gave here, we have idea and story. It's under pre-production. It comes in. So most of what I talked about was the production phase, or maybe from the tail end of the pre-production and production. So the script is there. Script is even done before anything starts, just like a normal movie. There's no difference between a movie script and an animated movie script. So a live action and animation, there is no difference. They are the same. So it's from the script now, the animators read it, and we know, like maybe in a script, you see something like Mr. John, a fat man, age 40. Now, when we are creating these characters, we have to create these characters based on the script. That's why we don't go and cast people that look that role. All we need to do is design these characters based on what the script is telling us. Then when we are doing our voice casting, we look for people that have the voice that fits the look. That's why in animation, there's something there's something we say. Choosing the right look for a character is important for creating its personality. That is why in animation, by mere looking at a character, you know what he stands for: good, bad, funny, or evil. Then to the first question, person asked about cost in terms of animation. Because at one point I said animation is cheaper, as in it's cheaper to try to say cast actors because we are using just their voices. We are paying them less than if they were actually acting for us. But the cost I'm talking about, when I say people think animation is a cheaper alternative to live action, cost is not only based on money. Time is a factor. So we can actually work in terms of time. Like what you could do in 1 week in live action, it would take you it could take you a year or half a year to achieve that in animation. In terms of money, you might not spend as much, but in terms of time, and you know they say time is money. So it's a two-way thing sometimes. So I hope I answered your question. Now, you asked how money is made from animation. Or at least you implied that. Now, you found that a lot of times, you found that animation work is outsourced. Because the West has realized it is much cheaper to get your work done in Africa than in the West. I once had a conversation with a foreign animator. We're discussing price. I asked her, what is a good price point for a certain kind of job? She asked me, how much were you thinking of charging? I said, I was thinking of charging $500 for that. And it was a maybe 2-day work. So she laughed. She said she wouldn't do that same job for 2,500 euros. But when you look at the whole thing, if you were to get $500 in 2 days, that's something reasonable. But in her own case, she explained, she gave me the breakdown. She's paying for equipment, she's paying for licensing, she's paying taxes, she's paying a lot of things. So in the long run, I could actually make more than her based on those deductions. So the West has figured that out. So what they do is they try to take advantage of it. A lot of animated movies you know about are actually done in Malaysia. Like for example, Star Wars animated series is actually done in Malaysia. It's cheaper for them. A lot of studios are shipping down their work to Africa because they can pay cheaper or pay less rather than what they would pay in foreign countries. And the internet has leveled the playing field because the truth about it is you can be in your home and you have access to everything. Internet, you can do the entire job without even stepping out of your bedroom. So that is why it is very sought after. So I think that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shima. We are educated. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are going to make film at the end of this exercise, I think it is high time we started preparing, and that time is now. So I'm going to call Mr. Gumut Ishaku to speak for a few minutes on prepping for a production. And immediately after then, we will divide us into two. One group will face this side, the other group will face this side. We may have to sit in circles. That list of division that we did, school by school, team by team, that is what we will follow. So a group will face this way, the other group will face this other side. We could rearrange the seat to be able to sit in circles. So that, because anytime from 1 o'clock, we are going to storm the street of Abuja. We'll take you to see everywhere in Abuja. But this has to be done before then. Mr. Gumut, please. Thank you. You know, go climb. Please clap for him.
All right, good morning. I know we've all been seated and we're tired.